decade after his last feature, Argentinian filmmaker Lisandro Alonso has returned with the ambitious triptych Eureka, a work that hops time, space, and genre to give a thorough account of the indigenous experience across three distinct narratives and settings: the Old West saloon towns of the 1800s, the South Dakota's Pine Ridge Reservation in the present day, and the jungles of 1970s Brazil. On the surface, these may look and feel like three radically disparate chapters, but the sheer genius of this work is that Alonso manages to link these stories, even with their ostensibly thin connective tissue. The film asks not to look at these narratives as three distinct pieces, but rather together, of one whole that is always in conversation with what follows or precedes. It invites viewers to locate resonances and contemplate the meaning behind the placement of very diverse images and sounds, to explore that particular freedom artists have to place certain things in a particular order or disorder in their construction of a coherent thesis. And here, Alonso threads various narrative avenues and aesthetic textures to reach his thesis on indigenous realities and the reverberations that occur over varying periods and milieus. In Eureka's first part, shot in black and white and framed in a tight 1:3:3, we are met with familiar images from the cinematic past, the Old West. The air is dusty and a lone wagon traverses the plains. In that wagon is a grizzled gunslinger, Murphy, played by Viggo Mortensen. He's making his way to an unnamed frontier town in search of his missing daughter, arriving at a rundown and debauched place familiar to the many saloon towns that define the Western genre. While wandering the town and getting boozed up, our lonely stranger encounters the mysterious El Colonel, played by Chiara Mastroianni, who offers her aid in his mission. This segment is bar none the plottiest and most dialogue-heavy section of the entire film. There's drunken philosophical banter, gunfights, and face-offs. It also moves so differently when placed next to the latter two chapters, the kind of momentum you would expect to find in a traditional cowboy picture and not the introductory 25 minutes to a work of slow cinema. This is Alonso riffing on Hollywood forms, on the trappings of a John Ford or Sergio Leone film, to craft his own spin on the white savior outlaw narrative we know so well. The cinematography by frequent Aki Kaurismäki collaborator Timo Salminen is irresistible, bringing to mind the black and white images of Jim Jarmusch's own self-aware western riff, Dead Man. Just as the drama is warming up and guns are being drawn, Alonso abruptly concludes this brief indulgence into the American Western, evaporating all tension and transitioning us into the film's second and longest piece of the triptych. Alonso's first narrative pivot comes with a rather clever cinematic rug pull, one that I don't want to reveal here as it's best left unspoiled, but regardless, we're abruptly thrust into a contemporary South Dakota, now in color and a wider frame. We're on the Pine Ridge Native Reservation, where a policewoman is being dispatched to deal with various incidents, all over one harsh winter night on the reservation. The policewoman comes across various locals crippled by addiction, wandering through drug dens and helping to settle down domestic disturbances. Alonso renders these moments in such a raw, matter-of-fact manner, deeply steeped in the banality of their day-to-day work. There's less focus on dialogue and more interest in the disaffected movements of the figures on screen. An officer of the law, disconcerted by the violence around her, numbly moving through such disturbing spaces, and the local inhabitants succumb to the government-sanctioned and self-imposed violence, almost becoming zombified beings. Following several of these harrowing moments, the film leaves the policewoman mid-scene to move the primary perspective over to her niece, Sadie, a young woman who is fed up with the doomed life on the reservation and turns to her grandfather to help her escape this prescribed existence. Through the mystical and transformative, Alonso allows Sadie to be carried away, and for the film to be carried away as well, into its very final movement. The next and final piece of the triptych opens with the camera soaring high above the jungles of the Amazon in 1970s Brazil, where we find a remote indigenous tribe being exploited by gold prospectors. This is the film's most dreamlike, magical segment that tells a South American love story through tribal discussions of dreams and images that have a deeply spiritual quality. Alonso's observational style now resting in an ethereal domain, one steeped in the indigenous ways of viewing love, existence, and the world at large. It's tinged with myth, that growing colonial influence against the grand backdrop of gold prospection, not only sharing that mythical reckoning with the film's opening segment, but also giving it even more weight, elevating that Western revenge story from more than just a simple stylistic riff. Alonso brings to light the ways certain American mythos can prop up the exploitation of indigenous histories, in life and in art, within the cowboy myth or the prospecting narrative. This third part of the film really solidifies Alonso's thesis and shows how this ambitious structural conceit allows it the time and space to gradually arrive at a compelling argument. Eureka marked my first foray into the works of Lisandro Alonso, a filmmaker whose unique spin on slow cinema I've always wanted to explore, but only now have I finally got the taste of this singular artist, who manages to take the observational and turn it into something truly magical. This film's combination of cinematic forms, of professional and non-professional actors, of countries and eras, is so endlessly transfixing, but also deeply challenging. The narrative opaqueness and meditative quality of Eureka makes the film nearly impossible to stop turning over in your head, attempting to piece together why this order, at this pace, with this lack of narrative propulsion, combing through the things, images, ideas that might repeat or reappear throughout the three stories for, as the title suggests, some moment of discovery. But there are no easy answers to be found. If this film is any indication of the quality of his work, I cannot wait to further explore Lisandro Alonso's cinema, and hopefully find that Eureka was just the start of a cinematic journey that is going to be so demanding but ultimately rewarding.